All right, here's a fundamental 5 that we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into the property than some of the previous fundamental 5s, only because one of our key guys has a deep history with this property. This particular piece is owned by Steve Frantz and his brother, and they know the property inside and out. So I'm looking forward to taking a deep dive myself and then throwing it to Steve to learn a little bit more about this 995 acres in the Black Belt of Alabama. I think one of the key features is just how many strategically placed food plots are on this property. 20 food plots, all total, 36 different shooting houses. Some of these plots have shooting houses for a variety of different wind directions, which is quite unique. But if you think of the time, money, and effort it takes to build 36 different shooting houses, right there is a value in and of itself. Steve and his brother called this particular piece Dreamland Plantation, and it's easy to see why. It's a beautiful piece that's very diverse. It's located just a few minutes from Livingston, Alabama. It's loaded with deer, it's got a great age structure, and it is loaded with wild turkeys. It's in the Black Belt, it's a large parcel, and it's got large neighboring parcels bordering it. It is in Sumter County, and it's hard to find tracts this large with this type of hunting history. So I think that's what makes it so unique, the fact that Steve has this hunting history. And one thing about Steve, he's one of the best hunters and killers on our team, so you know it's set up correctly. One of the things in talking to Steve that made this particular piece really unique was just how much daylight activity, not only that he gets on his cameras, his reconics cameras, but also that he sees. It's not uncommon to go out and see 10 deer in a sitting. Unique for Alabama in his terms is the fact that all of the bucks they've killed on the food plots. They have stayed out of the timber, out of the cover. They do not intrude, which I think leads to the overall ability to see deer during daylight. He really did stress it's unbelievable, the best he'd ever seen in Alabama for seeing deer during daylight hours and taking deer on these food plots. Another cool thing is you look through the map, you're behind a private gate, but as you go through the roads, they have a really good road system and probably maybe $150,000 worth of gravel on these roads, which is quite unique for a parcel this size. It's a very diverse tract. There's 160 acres of 12-year-old pine plantation, 80 acres of 13-year-old pine plantation, 35 acres of 18-year-old pine plantation, 65 acres of 21-year-old pine plantation, 40 acres of 31-year-old pine plantation, 272 acres of a mature mixed pine hardwood timber, and 330 acres black prairie, consists of mixed pine, sawed timber, cedar, and hardwood timber. Probably one of the most diverse tracts we've ever broken down here within the Fundamental 5. All right, we'll head down into the Black Belt here in Alabama, and we look at this tract. Almost looks like a version of the state of Texas in terms of its shape, but what a beautiful tract it is. I've started here on this particular screen so that you can see the diversity within the overall topography. You are just west of the Tombigbee River, but these are the hills and the hollows that are west of that river basin. So if you're over here on the east part of the property, you can see elevations at about 100 feet. As you go through the center of the property, a lot of it sits at 200, 250, 300, and you get as high as 350 feet in elevation. So you have 250 feet differential in overall elevation. And if you just look at that very quickly, you can see that this property is loaded with diversity. There's a lot of north face, a lot of east face, south face, west face. Very rare, I think, for that part of Alabama. If you go into the hybrid, that shows you just how steep some of these hills and hollows are. So that's going to give you a very good holding opportunity for mature bucks, as well as all of that timber that I already mentioned. There's a lot of timber value within this particular piece. There you can see it, where you go in and look at all the different timber, and interspersed within that timber are food plots that are strategically located in different parts of the property. 20 different plots overall. No matter where you're at, whatever the wind direction is, or what buck you're trying to target, you're going to see deer on these plots. That's one of the things that Steve stressed, is just how good it was when it came to all the different plots. Some of these plots are hidey-hos that are down to a half acre, but most of them, as you look through the property, are anywhere from 1 to 2 acres. Some of them are just a little bit larger. All of them have green food source on them right now. They're loaded with deer, loaded with turkeys. Overall, I think it's one of the best properties I've ever broken down here within the Fundamental 5. Look at all the different diversity, all the different pictures, all the different sightings, the turkeys, the deer, but who better to break it down than the current landowner? We've never done that before. Here comes Steve to tell you just a little bit more about this gem in the Black Belt of Alabama.
Hey, thanks, Mark. So, first off, I'd like to talk about a few key features about the property in the beginning of what made me want to actually purchase the property myself. This place is sitting right dead smack in the middle of the Black Belt that runs through Mississippi and Alabama, right there close to the town of Bigby. And that, coupled with the deer sign that I seen, made me feel pretty confident when I bought this place that it was going to be something really special. The first thing I looked at is the big, large landowners all around me. Did my research, I pulled up Onyx maps, looked at all the big landowners, and guys, this tract for several thousand acres around me is under a management program. This property in particular has been under management prior to me purchasing the property, so I had all that to look at and scale with. And coming in, one thing's for sure, this place is loaded with food plots. This place, like Mark mentioned, has got acre, 2 acres, some a little bigger, food plots scattered all around this place, and the dirt is so fertile. I noticed when I looked at the property and talking to the previous owner how these food plots, sometimes they didn't even have to use fertilizer on these fields. So another thing about this property anywhere I've ever hunted, especially when I viewed the property, is the absolute craziness of deer sign on this place. Anybody that comes to look at this property will see for themselves. You don't have to go far and you're going to see deer sign. Another key feature to this place is there's 8 predetermined lake sites that a previous owner several years back had gotten drawn up on a map, and several places you can put in a lake on this place, several lakes if you will. The diversity of this property is like anything I've ever seen. It's got your various stages of pine plantation, thick, it's got all kind of food in there. You got big timber, big oaks, big pines, just a little bit of everything, sage. It's just a real diverse tract. It's just beautiful. There's no neighbors, there's no dogs barking. If anything, you might hear a tugboat going down the river here and there, and that's about it. So there's no through traffic. Nobody can come in the property from any direction. Another thing Mark mentioned is the road system to the place. And let me just tell you, it stays so dry. I mean, you could come in after a torrential downpour. There's probably within $150,000 or more worth of gravel and rock put on the place, which you can tell. So the road system is second to none. This is the best tract that I've ever hunted in the state of Alabama by far for so many reasons. One thing that stood out to me since we've owned it, every single buck, as Mark mentioned, we've taken off a food plot. There's a stigma with Alabama, it's hard, they're nocturnal, these bucks are hard to hunt. It's because of the pressure. This place is so unpressured. One other thing I can mention, and Mark touched on it, is the amount of daylight pictures. This is a very true statement. I could literally say that I probably have as much or more daylight pictures of bucks just on my Reconyx cameras than I do night photos. As you can see from the photos we've been sharing, it's just nothing like I've ever seen. There's really no term of nocturnal when it comes to this piece of property. So also something that I've learned after owning the property, the age structure is where it needs to be on this place in the buck to doe ratio. I mean, you could sometimes see as many bucks as you see does. It's just something you don't experience typically in Alabama. Maybe in Illinois, not Alabama. Now, for all you turkey hunters, let me just tell you, this place is littered with gobblers, littered with hens, it's littered with turkeys. Good news is for you, if you purchase a property and you're a turkey hunter, I, nor my brother or anybody else, have not killed one single turkey on this property. We are not turkey hunters. So it is a turkey hunter's dream. I've got people that beg me every day of the week, it seems like, to come turkey hunting the place. So that's a key feature to mention to you as well. It's loaded with turkeys just as much as it is deer, and there ain't been one taken off the place. So if you're a turkey hunter, I bet you'd have a good time hunting this place. And as Mark mentioned, you're 10, 15 minutes from Livingston, Alabama, right there where West Alabama University is. You got everything at your fingertips within 10 to 15 minutes. You're not even 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes from I-20. So you're not far from Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Meridian, a lot of things like that. I've had so many friends and family come to me and say, Steve, why in the world are you selling this place? Me and my brother, And quite honestly, that's a very hard question to answer. But it's just all in all a phenomenal deer hunting tract for almost 1,000-acre piece in the middle of the Black Belt in Alabama. As a whole, the place, like I said, by far is the best tract that I've ever hunted in the state of Alabama for so many reasons that I've stated.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Mossy Oak.